Welcome to the Swing Left Nebraska podcast that's all about energizing communities, advocating for change, and making a difference in the great state of Nebraska. We'll dive deep into the heart of Nebraska's progressive movement, exploring the stories, strategies, and initiatives that are shaping the political landscape. We're here to amplify the voices of candidates, local activists, and community leaders who are fighting for a more equitable, inclusive, and prosperous Nebraska. Swing Left Nebraska is your go-to resource for staying informed about key issues, upcoming elections, and how you can get involved. Whether you're a seasoned organizer, a concerned citizen, or someone who's looking to make a difference for the first time, we've got you covered. Get ready to be inspired, and let's embark on this incredible journey together. Welcome, listeners near and far. You are tuned into the Swing Left Nebraska podcast, your go-to pod for all things happening within our bustling unicameral legislature. I am your host, Leah, and today we have a very special episode lined up for you. As you know, our unicameral system means we've got a single legislative chamber working overtime to consider, debate, and pass the laws that shape our daily lives. And let me tell you, they've been busy bees with a whole lot of new bills on the table. In this episode, Cindy Maxwell-Ostdiek and I are diving into the thick of legislative action. We're unpacking the proposed bills that are sparking conversations in coffee shops, on social media, and maybe even at your dinner table. We'll discuss the potential impact of these bills, the debate they've stirred up among our legislators, and the implications for you, the citizens. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's get ready to break down the bills that could change the game. Let's do a show. Sydney, this is a big day. I'm looking forward to later this afternoon after we do this recording on Saturday, January 27th. We're going to go cheer on Senator Blood for her announcement for Congressional District 1, which is so exciting. Are you looking forward to that?
I really am. And Senator Blood has really worked to represent her community when you talk about her work with the city and Bellevue, and then as a senator representing her district. I think that she will be an amazing congressperson for District 1.
I agree. So we encourage you to check out her website and for ways that you can get involved. And if you are not able to get involved on a level of volunteering, any donation will help. I also want to make sure folks are aware that Preston Love also signed up to fight for a chair in the U.S. Senate against Pete Ricketts. So please check out his website. I'll leave all this in the information in the show notes. And then independent Dan Osborne is also up for election for U.S. Senate against Deb Fisher. So please check out his website, consider donating to his campaign and volunteering as well. So we have a lot to get into today. Really just it's bills, right? We've got bills are coming out from all over the place. So we took a little time before we hit the record button to pick out a few that stood out to us. So that's what we're going to be breaking down for you today. So you are aware of some of the happenings going on in the unicameral. So let's start off with LB 952, introduced by Senator Day, but also has the backing of Senator Aguilar, which would require DHS to opt into the summer EBT program and has the potential to feed 150,000 children. Can you discuss this further, Sydney?
Yes, I was excited when the news came out that Senator Aguilar had prioritized Senator Day's bill because this is a short session and it's difficult to get to all the prioritized bills, even, let alone the rest of the bills in front of the legislature. This really helps get that much closer to the floor so that they can hopefully pass this. And just to remind everybody, this particular bill is only required because the governor has refused these dollars from federal program for summer EBT for these school children. This program is $18 million to our state. We're going to bring those tax dollars back to Nebraska and help students who need food in the summer. It's just a no brainer. I can't believe that we have to even pass a bill to make this happen, but Senator Aguilar prioritized it, and that is really just amazing news.
It is great to see the bipartisan support on something that just makes sense.
I
Even
really
making
appreciate Senator Day for bringing that and making sure that we prioritize these children. She has also brought bills regarding SNAP eligibility, and she's had a focus on people who are food insecure in our state. So I just really appreciate her.
I appreciate her too. Yeah, it's wonderful that she did bring that bill to the attention of Nebraskans so they know that it's a priority and that we are working to do the basic, feed the children of the state. So pivoting over to LB 20, it's a bill that Raybold actually prioritized, and that's to make sure that incarcerated people who completed their sentences have their voting rights restored, right? It just makes sense. They did a crime, they did the time. They shouldn't have to wait the now 2 years to be able to get their voting rights back. Wayne initially brought this bill up, but it sounds like Raybold is prioritizing
Yes,
this.
Senator Rabel prioritized Senator
Thank you.
Wayne's LB 20. I hope that this passes as well. It is really a shame that the Nebraskans who've completed all of their requirements regarding their felony probation and their sentence, they complete it, they should have their voting rights restored immediately. And right now there's an arbitrary 2-year waiting limit. And I'm so excited about this bill. Senator Wayne brought this and that Senator Rabel prioritized it. Hopefully we can get this across the finish line.
I agree. I'm looking forward to following this and hopefully, like you said, we can get it across the finish line. Frederickson's childcare bill, LB 856, would provide free childcare to childcare workers. Wow, what a really creative and important bill for those childcare workers out in Nebraska. What do you think?
As far as Senator Frederickson, I am just loving the package of bills that he brought this year. And I really feel that the need in our state for childcare is a crisis. And he's recognized that, was really focusing on some of these issues. We need to make sure that Nebraskans can have safe and accessible and affordable childcare so that they can create this engine for building our economy in our state. But one of the difficulties is that there's not enough childcare, sometimes because there are people who work in the industry who have no care for their own children. It's a domino effect. And so this really gets at the root of one piece to this puzzle. And I really hope that the senators will pass this bill. It's 856, and it's basically to help attract workers into the childcare industry with helping them with childcare assistance for their own children. And it's part of that recruitment and retention that we really need to focus on. And I'm really excited about that bill.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a really wonderful bill. And a lot of these make sense. Speaking of making sense, Michaela Kavanaugh introduced some bills that address sexual assault in the Judiciary Committee this week. Would you like to talk about that for our audience?
Yes, I really appreciated two bills that were in front of the Judiciary Committee this week. As a survivor myself, I thought that these bills were important. Senator Kavanaugh brought LB 870, which basically would help to preserve the evidence under the Sexual Assault Victims Bill of Rights. So currently, the evidence kit are preserved for a certain period of time. It would actually bring that requirement to 20 years. There's no mandate right now across our state how long sexual assault evidence kits are maintained. So it would mandate that they preserved for 20 years and then to notify the victim by law enforcement if it gets to that 20 years and they would either potentially destruct or dispose of the kit, or if the victim requests, it preserved for another 20 years. So it gives the victim the right to be informed of those changes. And it's just really important, I think, not just for victims in these cases, but also so that it could be preserved and used to hopefully find these criminals and keep everyone safe. It's just really important. So I really appreciated that bill. And Senator Ibach brought a bill to basically help with making sure that sexual assault victims are notified when the person who hurt them comes before the board of pardons. And basically, anytime there'd be like a pardon or a commutation, those types of changes to their status, it would require notifying the victim about them. Now, I'm shocked it's not a requirement already. It should be, but basically it expands the list to include manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, false imprisonment, strangulation, suffocation, domestic assault, child enticement, abuse of a protected individual, terroristic threats, sex trafficking, labor trafficking. It just really expands the list of crimes that would fall under this notification process. And I just really think that's a great bill too. And I hope that we'll continue to see some of this bipartisan work in the legislature, that they roll up their sleeves and work together to get good laws passed.
Yes, I agree. That one is so important. And thanks for sharing your story. I wanted to discuss a bill that addresses caregiving for elder adults in Nebraska. So there are approximately 167,000 family caregivers in Nebraska who provide around $2.8 billion worth of unpaid care annually. These caregivers believe that tax credits would help them afford the care for their loved ones while also reducing state costs. Senator Elliot Bostar of Lincoln introduced LB 937, which is actually modeled after the Caring for Caregivers Act that was passed in Oklahoma last year. Now, according to the bill, caregivers who provide care for an aged, sick, or disabled loved one at home will be able to claim a state income credit of up to $2,000 per year. The credit would actually increase to 3,000 per year if the person cared for is a military veteran or has dementia. The tax credit will be aimed at low and middle income families who make less than $100,000 for a couple or $50,000 a year for an individual. And I feel very personally attached to this bill because of the work that I do outside the podcast. I work with lots of elderly patients, and I know of so many stories where family members do take the time off to be the sole caregiver for their loved one, and it impacts them dramatically. So if they're able to put some extra money in their pocket so that they can continue to care for their loved one, I know this would make a huge impact in those people's lives.
Oh my gosh, yes. I really do hope that they pass that bill too.
So, moving on, a bill to elect members of Omaha Public Power District and Nebraska Public Power District on a partisan basis has been advanced from the first round debate in state legislature. As per Legislative Bill 541, making certain elections partisan, candidates for the two largest public power districts in Nebraska would be elected based on political affiliation. The bill's already been approved in the first round debate, no surprise, with a 29-16 vote, which was along party lines. Republicans, including Lowe, supported the bill, and all the Democrats voted against it. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's outrageous. I am very concerned with this trend in the legislature to continue to try to move our unicameral and our election processes more partisan. And we're all familiar with party primaries for such positions like our president or governor or Congress. Members who are registered of a certain party can then vote in the primary for who would move on to the general election. But when you talk about most of the elections, the great number of elections in Nebraska for such things like city council, school board, legislature, NPPD, OPPD, all of these various elected officials are on a ballot which is called nonpartisan. And basically, if there's enough people who throw their hat in the ring for the position, there will be a primary. And the primary would help determine the top two vote getters who then go on to the general. And it doesn't matter what party they belong to. You could have two Republicans advance from a primary in a nonpartisan race. You could have an independent and a Democrat. You could have any number of combination, but it really is the way to help advance the best candidates for all voters then to decide during the general election. And what is troubling about this particular bill, because we've had others in the past few years where they've been trying to create partisan elections where we currently have nonpartisan ones, is that this bill forget power. in our state. I think it's important to say that public power is under attack in our state. And Senator Lowe wants to take the elections for public power to a partisan ballot. And I was concerned that it would be a partisan primary, but it sounds like it's a partisan ballot. And he was quoted on the floor of the legislature as saying the reason he wants to do this is because East Coast money was being dropped into these races, and that making the races partisan will give voters 99% of the information that they need to know, just based on the person's party. And we know that's not true. We're wanting to make sure that we don't shortchange voters. I think voters and Nebraskans are smart and educated and informed when they go to the ballot, they go to the polls, fill out their ballot, and they're looking for the person who will make the best decisions regarding power for not only our state and our economy, but our children's future, that we're doing the right decisions long term. And it was really troubling to me that there was an amendment that was brought forth on this bill that would actually limit this change to only public power districts of a certain size. So we're not even talking all of the public power districts across the state. They're going in and targeting OPPD and NPPD. And it's not good for our state, and they should not have advanced this. And I hope that at the next stage of debate, if it comes up, that they vote it down. I really do. I hope they vote it down.
I hope they vote it down as well. Cindy, I was wondering if you could give an update as far as the temporary regulations for gender affirming care. Do you have any updates for our listeners?
Yes, it's really disappointing. This week, the Department of Health and Human Services had forwarded these temporary regulations to the State Board of Health because they basically didn't want to change what had already been put forth regarding these temporary regulations. And if everyone remembers back to November, there was a hearing in Lincoln regarding these temporary regulations, and over 75 people attended that day. I went to, and it was a 12-hour hearing from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And there were 75 people who came to testify about how harmful the way these regulations were being implemented, that it would harm children in our state. The restrictions regarding time and what kinds of therapy and what kinds of hoops that these parents would need to jump through on behalf of their children. 75 people testified, and there were only 3 that testified in favor of the temporary regulations. Otherwise, it was a parade, doctors and nurses and mental health professionals, transgender youth and parents of these children and concerned citizens. They came forward to talk about their personal experience and their healthcare concerns, their what they're seeing in their clinics, what kinds of information they have from their professional boards and the scientific data. Dr. Tesmer wasn't there. He didn't attend to listen. And when I say attend, he didn't attend to listen, but I don't think he intended to listen either, because people also submitted online comments or emails regarding their views on this topic. When they put the report out, it was chaotic. I had never seen a report regarding temporary regulations and how they're formatted. And if it's the way it's done normally, then we need to make sure as Nebraskans we're asking for better, because this report actually had no dates on it. The report wasn't dated, and then the comments weren't dated. They weren't sorted by either like category as proponent or opponent. They weren't sorted by profession, like the people who commented that were doctors or nurses or parents. There were no indication if it was a written comment or if it was in person. It wasn't even sorted alphabetically. It was very difficult to read. It was in landscape, and the comments would go from page to page. Come to find out, apparently some comments weren't even included. So it was not done in a manner which really we would expect with such a serious issue. It just really points to the fact that the executive branch, through this whole process, has been really casual or careless with these children and their health. And it's disturbing. I hope people will be in touch with their senators, making sure that they hold the governor and the Department of Health and Human Services and the state medical officer, the Board of Health. I hope they hold them accountable, that they make sure that these regulations are reviewed periodically what we hope won't come to pass, but if it is that we're seeing harm to children during this process, that they would relook at it and be more careful with these children. It's very serious things that are happening to these children as far as being restricted from the care that the doctors and parents believe they need. I just wanted to bring attention to this because it is just really tragic to see what has happened this last year and how it's now playing out in just real life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that to our awareness, Sydney. Now, moving on to some concerns and issues happening in North and South Omaha. Complaints rose about a grant process. Up to $234 million in state funds were awarded to dozens of North and South Omaha groups on Friday, January 26th for various economic development projects. However, complaints were already on the rise about the grant process even before the announcement. During a legislative debate on related proposal, concerns were expressed that many of the awards were for $50,000, which may not be enough funding to create the kind of transformational change that lawmakers initially sought. Wayne had expressed this key concern, questioning whether the amount of funding was sufficient for the intended purpose. What are your thoughts on this?
This really played out on the floor of the legislature this week. And during debate the other day, Senator Wayne was really trying to bring attention to this. And I appreciated that there were senators that stood up and either shared their thoughts or asked questions or tried to help Senator Wayne with time, like giving him their time to speak on this issue. And for example, Senator Linehan asked a few questions and really tried to make sure that people were listening to these concerns. So I appreciated that there was a bipartisan focus on this. But the thing is that when we look back over the last few years and all the work that really was put in to try to direct investment for increasing jobs, increasing the sustainable economies of North and South Omaha and Eastern Omaha, the thing it sounds is that the Department of Economic Development worked with, sounds like the mayor and various other stakeholders, but they didn't include Senator Wayne, Senator McKinney. They didn't include other community members and businesses that were really trying to look to grow their companies and their organizations so that they could bring jobs to these locations. And that's just really unfortunate. I think that it looks like there's some recipients that really do a lot of good things for the community, but it sounds like there was a real lean towards like nonprofits, current nonprofits. And I really would love to dig in more a little bit. There's a Nebraska Examiner article, and at the bottom of the article, it actually has a picture of a summary of the grants, including what kinds of categories. And I think it would be interesting to go and do the Department of Economic Development and pull up the rest of those categories and just take a look at what we're talking about here. I think that it was telling that Senator Wayne and Senator McKinney did not attend the information ceremonies and presentations that took place on Friday with the governor and the mayor and the city council members and various stakeholders. They did not attend. They opted out. Senator Vargas did attend the announcements in South Omaha. So I think this is something that we'll make sure that we need to pay attention to and really call on the legislature to ensure that when they pass legislation, they hold these departments and organizations accountable for the actual result, what they were trying to attend with this money. It's concerning.
It is concerning, and it's another thing that we will be paying attention to and continue to provide updates for you so you are in the know. And speaking of the know, as always, I will drop the link in the comments so you can keep your eye out on what bills are up next week and what you should be paying attention to. And you can actually just do it right from your phone. I was watching a movie and making comments right from my phone. I could click the link. I literally clicked the link in the show note that I provided to myself and for all of you. And then I went in and made my comments as I was watching a movie.
good news that came out after we talked last week was a change to the online comment process. The deadline now is 8 a.m. on the day of hearing, which is amazing. It gives more time to Nebraskans so that they can make their wishes and concerns and ideas known to the senators before the hearing. There's always a 7 day notice, at least 7 day notice. And this gives us more time so that you can actually have a chance to make your online comment. And I did it the other morning. It was something that I read about in the paper, and I made my comment at 7:45 a.m. And I just really appreciated that extra time. I think it's going to help Nebraskans be more involved in the process. So I'm excited about
An easy way for you to stay engaged, stay involved, and make your voice heard. As we wrap up, Cindy, is there any final words that you have for our incredible listeners today?
I think it's important to make sure that everyone's in contact with their senator and also thanking the senators that held strong regarding the nonpartisan rules in the legislature. For example, maybe calling or sending an email to Senator Aguilar's office, thanking him for prioritizing food for children during the summer. Senator Hunt had a bill that was supported in a bipartisan way and advanced to the next round regarding safety and health with drug paraphernalia, making sure that people had access to sanitary, we think of like needles and things like that. I know there was way more involved with it. I wasn't able to watch that debate the other morning, but I was really pleased to see that there were senators from both sides of the aisle working to try to bring these good programs to their communities across the state. Hopefully, we can see more of that. And if you encourage your senators and let them know how important it is, hopefully it will give them more incentive to actually hold firm on it.
Awesome. Cindy, it's always a blast to connect with you and to pick your brain to help us unpack the unicameral so we know what's going on and how we can get involved. Appreciate your knowledge. Appreciate all the time that you take to go down to the unicameral to pick up these nuggets for us and to help us really understand what's going on. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. We want to send a huge thank you to all of you tuning in and joining us on this journey. Your support means everything to us. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to share this podcast with your friends and family. Word of mouth is truly the best way to help us grow and continue bringing you great content. And don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite pod platform. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps listeners find us. If you haven't already, also make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you never miss an episode. We've got some exciting things coming up and you won't want to miss out. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back next week with another great episode that you don't want to miss. Until then, take care and keep making waves. Let's mobilize. Let's take action. Let's go.
Ready, set, go.
Get ready to go.